Immaturity is not, it's not wrong if you're young. It's immature. If you're immature and you're 35, then there's a problem. But when you're 15,
that's right.
We can't expect somebody to be like a grown up. And we really ask our boys to not date. Havilah, we have some questions here. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's some things that I want to make sure we cover it in the next couple sessions. And a couple of these things that come up that we are asking about dating, and you and I talked about kind of our opinion on dating, and I'd love you to share your theory. Yeah, and I'll share a practical things because we've done it right and done it wrong. And
absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone has their own philosophy on dating, and there's a lot that's out there. And I think what's important is that we don't expect kids to be more mature than they are, and to not commit something physically, sexually, and in their heart in a way that changes their ability to just connect with a real person and be married and all that good stuff. So my suggestion is that this is how I lived my own life. This is what we will do with our own boys, is that I think hanging out with young adults and being around and having fun, but when you start to be segregated and say, this is my person, when you're not able to live it out as an adult, there's an overcommitment. There's only a few ways you can commit, and it's either physically or it's emotionally. And really, when you're not able to say, I could live this out for life, it really affects their ability to connect. And oftentimes it's very rare, even statistically, for people to marry their high school sweetheart. It's so rare. But I also think, the Bible says that life comes out of our hearts. Like, our hearts are the wellspring of life, the Bible says. So I want us to teach our kids how to honor their hearts and honor the fact that, when we have certain chemicals and things released, it really changes us. So giving them permission to be children, giving them permission to practice in a safe environment, and to say, I'm really saving things for the time when I can really give myself, body, soul, and spirit to someone. I think it's a different season. So again, we're ebbing and flowing. We're growing as a family, but that's what's worked for us, and what we will continue to do as our boys get older. It's worked for me. And I met my husband, not in a dating environment, but in an environment that I was looking for someone that I could spend the rest of my life with. And I was looking for friendship. And I wanted to be able to live out respect in a way that wasn't just that I was physically attracted, but that I could build a life with someone. And that takes learning how to be with the opposite sex without it being
and knowing
immediately
who you
relationship. Absolutely.
Yeah. Havilah, just having a little bit of experience,
yes.
I've seen a lot of families that let their children start dating really early, and I haven't seen one I can say it turned out well for. I mean, I've seen young girls that end up divorced, they're they're already divorced or pregnant out of wedlock multiple times, or just, and a lot of it was like the moms and the dads living vicariously through, oh, my son's a stud muffin, he's so hot, everybody wants to go out with him, isn't that cool, look at his girlfriend. And we're assuming that our boys are mature enough to handle something, and that's, immaturity is not, it's not wrong if you're young. It's immature. If you're immature and you're 35, then there's a problem. But when you're 15,
that's right.
We can't expect somebody to be like a grown up. And we really ask our boys to not date. We were a little bit more hardline on it. We were a little bit more dating trains you for divorce. Yeah. Because you're always caring about somebody and then leaving them. We let our boys go to dances, but they would go to dances with girls that was such a friendship base. It was just a fun base that actually, one of my sons works with a girl who is married to his friend who he used to go to dances with, and his parents would say to her, you can only take one of the Bevere boys to the dance because I know they'll respect you, they'll respect your boundaries, and they're good dancers.
That's amazing.
And so we wanted our boys to be good dancers. We wanted them to have fun. We didn't want to say, oh, there's dancing out there, but you can't do it. We did say bumping and grinding off limits, but our boys didn't want to do that either. Yeah. But I remember, it was some learning lessons, because here's the thing. My boys had girls I really valued as friends. And when those girls pushed where it had to be boyfriend and girlfriend, we told them, we said, here's what's going to happen. when you go into this realm, a boyfriend and girlfriend, you'll never be friends again. Are you ready to lose that person as a friend? Because if you're not marrying them, you're going to break up one day and they're going to have to like cut you off. And so a lot of our boys made decisions not to be boyfriend and girlfriend with girls because they didn't want to lose the friendship. And they didn't want to put pressure on that. I remember my youngest son, though, wrote us this long letter about why he should date an unsaved girl, a girl that wasn't even a Christian. He did like a 3-page argument on why it would be better for her, that he'd be able to tell her about Jesus, that, you know, she was a daughter of a single parent, and she'd bring her over to the house, and she'd be in our family, and she'd be part of our family dynamic, and it would just be healing and like full-time ministry. And my husband and I were like, what a load of nonsense. But he really believed it. And so we said, you know what? He is convinced he can do this. He's 16. So we're gonna do this as an experiment.
Yeah.
It lasted about 3 weeks. And he was like, that was a very big mistake. And then the sad thing was, you know, not only did she not come over to hang out with our family or go to church with us, he ended up being enemies with her, you know, and so it was, and so he was like, I'm not doing that again. So, you know, our boys have been able, and he had the 3 older brothers tell him, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, but he was smarter because he was 15. So, you know, we try not to be legalistic with it, but we do feel like when they live in our house, there are things they're going to honor. Yeah. And it's what you said. It also empowers them to say, no, my parents really want me just to be friends with people right now and you know, pursue getting my life ready and going to college and doing these other things and not have all this drama.
And we always, you know, we were taught, and I lived this out, and I hope to teach my boys, is that, you know, you don't want to go to your wedding day and think of everybody you were with and all these things and look in your crowd of people.
Even if you don't have sex with them.
No, because we could talk a lot on this topic, but the truth is, once you are aroused by someone and that is pleased, you bond to that person. So that could be, and even when those endorphins get released, your vasopressin, your oxytocin, your dopamine, all these things get released, you begin to bond. And
a portion of your heart goes to them.
And God created, you know, women to have, you know, oxytocin released that makes you want to bond. So when we have an intimate relationship with somebody, whether that's, you know, the full, you know, intercourse, or whether it's just touching and having some intimacy, that gets released, and you want to care for that person. That's why you get the girl that's like, won't let the guy go when they're not together anymore. Well, we shame her and say, well, you're clingy, you're needy, you're codependent. But the truth is, she had a chemical release by God. That's a chemistry part of her that was released that said, you're mine, I'm going to take care of you. There's another one, vasopressin, is released by men oftentimes, and that hormone tells them to be jealous, that's there to nurture and protect this person. And so that oftentimes gets released in young men. And now all of a sudden, they're the jealous boyfriend. They're the guy that feels like he owns her. But really what's happened is that they've had a premature release of chemistry or chemicals.
The right thing at the wrong time.
It's not a healthy bonding. So we want to be kind to ourselves. We don't want to put ourselves in positions that we end up hurting ourselves because we just wanted to try it. And, you know, a lot of times I would say, too, is we want things to be saved for our kids. And I'm sure you saw this, but oftentimes parents, they don't save anything for their kids. It's like the moment they want it, they give it to them. They experience it. And, you know, when all you're doing is giving your kid every opportunity, there's nothing to look forward to. And there's certain things in life that we want to teach our kids. There's a time and a reason, and look forward to it. Yeah. And there's value. Remember, it's in the waiting and the stewarding that the value comes. Mm-hmm. And so that's a part of our lives too, is you are not old enough, but not only that, we want to save things for you so that you get to experience the fullness of life.
Yeah, and we did encourage people to be able to come to our house. So like they could bring girls over to our house.
I love that.
And
For sure.
you know, with guys, and there could be healthy interaction. They could watch a movie, but we wanted to know who was coming. We wanted to know a lot about them. And you know, they could come into our home. My husband and I weren't forbidden from any place in our house. It's our house. It's our house. You know, so like they're not, and no girls went up to my boys' bedrooms.
Right.
You know, and even with the doors open, there's no reason to go in their bedrooms. You know, if they need something in their bedroom, they go get it and bring it down. So, you know, just we didn't allow that. But there, you know, we have a lot of open space.
Absolutely.
But we fostered like, you know, we're not having kids hiding from the parents.
Right. And they were allowed to like girls.
They were allowed to like
girls. The issue was not right that they were allowed to
friendship with
be
them.
attracted and go. Yeah, being attracted is natural, but not.
Yeah, and that whole going together is such a joke anyway. It's just like, where are you going? You can't drive a car. You can't do
Gonna
anything.
live off your milk money.
Yeah, it's like passing notes in the hall. We're going together. I'm like, you're going nowhere. That's just ridiculous. So some of it's just, I'm just going to own it. I did tell my boys, you don't want to date. These girls are going to take all your money. They're going to take all your money. You want a car?
The gold diggers.
Forget it. So we did kind of say it's going to cost you a lot emotionally, and it's going to cost you a lot money-wise.
It's true.
But we do want them to know how to behave themselves around the opposite sex. And even when you have a household of all boys, they need help.
Well, and that's part of the issue. I think oftentimes when you're around all boys, it can be a frat house. I mean, it can feel like it's all boys and it's just this masculine. And I mean, there are times when I've ran upstairs and like locked the door and watched Hallmark movies and like, I will not let my femininity go, you know? But there's a point where I realize it's not going to help them if I just let them be, it's all masculine, it's all boys, and I'm just going to be boy too. No, I'm a woman, and there are women in your life that you will have, you're going to marry one, you're going to have a daughter maybe one day.
My boys open the door for me in the car.
They're gentlemen, and that's something I've noticed about your boys. But I think, ultimately, acting like it's irrelevant isn't true. They're going to have to learn to be around girls. So why not have it practice in your environment? And I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. So for my boys, I don't allow them to do certain things in front of me. I really ask them, like, we joke, and again, there's a lot of body noises that go on, and I'm not like, don't ever do that. Like, there's a lot of humor that probably are boy humor, but there are certain things that, I don't get dressed in front of them. There are certain things that I just keep very private, like I'm the woman, and I had to navigate that. Like, how long was that? And, when is this appropriate? And, my Biddles,
No, I was gonna say, and speaking of private, I have a lot of moms that say, how do I know if my son's looking at pornography? How do hey, if they live in your house, you can go through their drawers.
You can.
I'm sorry, you can go through their drawers. You can look under their mattresses. You can look. I give you permission. You say, I would never want to violate the privacy. Violate the privacy, especially if you think they're involved in something that they shouldn't be involved in. They're under your protection. Don't do it when they're home. Do it when they're at school. Don't warn them. Just go and do it. Just go and do it. Read the notes. They're in their drawer. You don't. I mean, I'm sorry. My boys, if they left notes in their pants, and I was doing laundry, I saw it. But I mean, I want these moms to feel empowered to protect their boys.
That's right.
And you can create conversations, and you can even say to them, hey, I happen to be in your room, and I saw this.
Yep.
And I want to talk to you about this.
I love it.
We need to have this conversation. So
I love it.
You don't want to help your children hide things that are going to hurt them. You don't.
And we have friends that they just call it phone check, and they just do it randomly. Let me see your phone, and they just check their phones. Or they even they have friends that their parents can add friends on their social media, and they just they know what's going on. And I think that's what you're saying is you are allowed to be aware, and you are not snooping. These are still kids.
Yeah.
And
these are not
protection.
adults. These are your kids. Yeah. And you're supposed to train them. And
right.
that's it's important. So, if the girl has a bunch of skanky pictures on her Facebook, you'd be like, no, we're not dating. And then, people said, and there might be people who say, Havilah and Lisa, you guys are so ancient. I mean, we believe in dating. What is the right age of dating? Dating is not a function of age. Dating is a function of maturity and the right person. Right. So I don't think we should even date. We don't try people on. I don't think we should date until you're ready to start thinking of pursuing a relationship for marriage.
Right. That's right.
So to me, that's when it happens. A lot of these parents think, at 16, I'm just going to let them run amok. Well, no, maybe that's not the right person. And I do know that Addison got married young. He got married at 22.
Yeah.
But he had dated a little bit and then just said, I'm not dating at all. I'm going to wait for God to bring my wife. And there was a heightened sensitivity.
Yeah.
There was an anticipation. Yeah. There was a looking. There was a watching. There was a waiting. And he knew what he was looking for. And the very, very first time he met Julie, he knew she was the one.
Wow.
And so I think if he had been so distracted and so fragmented by all of the other connections and relationships he'd had, maybe his little heart wouldn't have been sensitive to know. Yeah. And she's perfect for him.
Yeah.
And they had to they dated for a very short amount of time, and then she was in a different place. And so we said, if you guys are really serious, we think Julie needs to really immerse herself into a little bit. And so she went to 24/7, and they could only talk to each other 5 minutes a week supervised. And they did all that and then got engaged. Now they have 4 beautiful children. They love each other. So you guys, we don't have to do social experiments with our kids.
It's one of the most important decisions you'll make with your whole life. You know, you don't get to pick your kids, you don't get to pick your parents, but you get to pick your spouse.
Yeah.
And so we want to help our kids.
And you want nice daughter-in-laws. I've got an amazing daughter-in-law, and you want nice daughter-in-laws.
No, it's true. We value them. And sometimes it is enough to say you're not ready. And kids hate that, but the truth is we are allowed to say you're not ready. We love you. You're just not ready. And you know, some of you might go, we've already done it. Like we have 12-year-olds, we have 13. You know,
you can pull back.
You can go back. You can say, listen, I didn't know what I know now. I love you, but in our home we don't do boyfriends and girlfriends right now. And we do that with our boys. You know, we have a 2nd grade and a 3rd grader, and we just say we don't do boyfriends and girlfriends. And I'm like, do kids? You know, I always ask. I ask a lot of questions. Are kids talking about anything? You know, is there anything you heard that you were curious about? Is there, you know? And I ask. And sometimes I don't want to ask the question because as a mom, just like, oh, I don't want to know this. But the truth is, I need to ask. I need to be able to manage that anxiety and fear and say, no, I need to ask. And so I ask. And oftentimes, and one other thing I'd say too, sometimes a kid will ask something and we over disclose. And one thing that I think is really important that we do in our own home is we always say, what do you mean by that? And that one
bring
question,
more clarity to the question.
Always,
okay.
What do you mean by that? Because sometimes they could say, you know, someone said sex, and you're like, did they mean intercourse, or was it oral, or was it, you know? And you're like going, and they're like,
kids are like, what? What's oral
and so
sex?
It's important to ask, what do you mean by that? Because oftentimes what you think they mean is not what they mean. And when you ask, what do you mean by that? It allows that space. Sometimes for you to buy time. I remember this. I was in the car, and you know, I think also reaction's important. I was in the car and I had my 2nd grader, my eldest, in the car, and we're driving, and he said, Mom, I heard the worst cuss word in the world today. And I was like, you know, they're not hearing cuss words from us, but you know, we at this point, like, stupid was a cuss word and idiot was a cuss word. You know, we're like, so he goes, I heard the worst cuss word, and I said, and I'm sitting in the car, and the brothers in the back, and I said, well, can you tell me what it is? And I said, but can you whisper it because your brothers are in the back? And so he leans over, and he tells me, he says the F word to me, like just says it, and I remember holding my steering wheel and being like, yeah, that is the worst cuss word. And I said, well, you know, who told you that? And he said, well, you know, so-and-so told me that. And I'm like, well, you know, that they have a demon. No, I wanted to be like, you know, I'm calling their mother, I'm calling the kids' school. You know, I was like, and I said, well, you know, we don't use that word, and you know, it is a very bad word. And I remember feeling this flush of like, I wanted to just freak out, but I realized, if I freak out now, they're not going to tell me later. Yeah. And so the goal is that I don't change my stance. Yeah. Like, hey, you know, we don't use that word. And if you ever hear someone use that word in your school or around you, please tell me. But
I'm not going to ask for phone numbers. I'm not going
to post a picture of the parent on Facebook and say this kid knows cuss words. You know, my kids could use all kinds of things against me. But it was the sense of like, hey, I felt like what was more important was not that I knew what he knew, but what was more important was that he saw that I could, that I was going to be a safe place to land, and he does, and he tells me everything, and I'm like, oh gosh, but it's good. It's good for them to know, and at the end of the day, it's good that I'm a safe person.
Well, I mean, we want to empower you to protect him, and you know, again, I think one of the things that is, you know, if you have maybe gone on the wrong pattern, or maybe you've just followed this world's culture, you can make a course correction. Right. You can sit down with your kids. There's nothing that says just because we let you start dating, we're going to have to let you keep dating. You can say, hey, we're seeing this we've done a little bit more study, we've seen in this, and man, you're so precious to us. We don't want to see this happen. Great. So be empowered, and you can make course corrections. So we're going to talk about dating. Now, I am not the biggest fan of kids going together, especially when they're like 10 and they're not going anywhere. So we're not going to like start with that dating as that the motto where parents drop kids off at the mall. We want to set a higher standing for dating. So if you're a single mom, or if you're just a mom with guys, I want you to have your sons take you on a date. I want you to date your sons and have the sons plan out the date. Let's sit down together and say, hey, what are we going to do together? And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then bring your husband along and have your husband take you on this amazing date, and let your boys see how he begins to unpack that, opening doors, using polite terminology, behavior that honors the moments that you're spending together. I don't think kids need to date early. I think that that's dangerous. I think that we should have relationships in the company of family or in groups. I would not recommend allowing your sons to date early. I know they're not going to like it. I know there's going to be some pushback on it, but dating is not a function of age. Dating is the function of maturity, and is this the right person for me to even be singling out? So we talked about that in the lesson. Model dating well so that they can understand actually what that would look like with the right person in the right season.